up on the top of your screen, and you can just read the policy or you can dismiss that there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So hopefully everybody can see me. Padraic might turn on his camera there as well and his microphone. And I suppose I'll just continue by saying that this whole interview series is based off, I suppose, being involved in a county team and knowing everything that was going on inside it really, really well, and the people on the outside not knowing so much. And then when you're on the outside of it, you don't know anything about the people involved or what's going on there. So hopefully tonight will shed some bit of light on the inner workings of a county setup and the type of people that end up being involved in county teams. So just with the interview itself, it's broke down into 5 sections. So we're going to start with a little bit on Padraic's background. We'll then go into a footballing section. We'll come back into a sort of a personal section, into football as well. And then hopefully we have some time at the end for just some random and fun bits of stuff. So I'd like to just bring Padraic in there. Padraic, is your camera on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Yeah, just can't see you there. Oh yeah, I have you there now. Lovely. So just for everybody else's sake and for Padraic as well, I'm probably one of the most nervous I've been doing something in a long time, and more nervous than I was ever when I was facing you in goals, and that's saying something. So hopefully the people that's listening and paying attention can persevere with us. Obviously, this is not something I do that often, but hopefully I can bring something to your experience tonight. So Padraic, firstly, thanks very much for facilitating this with us, kicking off the series. And, you know, I feel quite comfortable with you as well. So hopefully it'll lead into the other interviews that we do. The first thing I'd just like to kick off with maybe is from birth to your early years up until 8 years of age. If you can just fill in something there along like your family background, where you grew up, where you went to school, that sort of stuff.
Thanks that you can see me there, Ian, hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Padraic.
Okay, good man. I'm not great at this stuff. Look, thanks for having me, and I'm happy to come on in these times when there's not a whole lot on the box, etc. But I suppose, look at not to bore people with my early days. They're quite a while ago now. But born and reared in the village of Drumlish, right on the crossroads there. Obviously from Davis family. My mother was an Albas woman in County Leitrim. And the Davises were just born on Main Street there, or the family residence, and my grandfather had a business there in the meat industry that still exists with cousins of mine. But that was basically it in our house. We had a small family. There's just myself and my sister Amanda. You know, I suppose the same as any other kids. There were different times. I think we could be let out for the day really on the streets there, generally with a ball, and we'd find our ways out on the outside of the village and that. But it was just different times. But there were certainly great times. And as I say, it was a small family. My dad died when he was very young, at 47. I was 7, I think, at the time. I don't think I had turned 8. And you know, but look, we were left in very good hands, and myself and my sister can be very grateful for that.
And just on your dad there, Padraic, he was working in the butcher business at the time?
He was, yeah. We had a butcher shop which still exists as Mitchell Meats now there on the crossroads. Many would be familiar with that. And yeah, just a heart attack in at a very young age. And that was it, family business. My mother kept it going. And that's where we were born and reared. And then we moved on and went to national school in Drumlish village there. We're all obviously all the locals would have went, and they were great times. And you know, the national school is for those that have ever been in the marquee in Drumlish. That building still stands next door to it, but I suppose through darkness and everything else, probably get it hard to see it during those 4 nights at the marquee. But that's exactly where that, I suppose, anybody of my vintage, just the school they went to. But obviously Drumlish have an excellent school now, up beside the community centre on the AstroTurf. On the hill of Drumlish there, but they were great times, you know. And I suppose there were, you know, I suppose every kid at that age just lives in the moment. And you know, would I go back there? Absolutely. Some people would say that they're happy to keep on the road they're on, but I think they were great times for everybody, and I certainly enjoyed them.
And memories around your dad, Padraic. Obviously, like I have a young fella there at the minute, he's 7, and I just from thinking about this, I'd be questioning myself when he gets to 30 or 40 or 20, how much memories he has from when he was 7. What were your memories of your dad at that stage? Or
Yeah,
now?
likewise, my girls are 13 and 14, so there's no issue there. But we take Dahi is 5 and Donna is just 3.5. So I'm very much conscious all the time that it's highly unlikely that right now, as close as a relationship as we have, as all parents have with their kids, it's highly unlikely they're going to remember these days. And, you know, I suppose even at 5, because we're at home 24/7, maybe there's a chance of a 5 or 6-year-old remembering, but my memories will be very, very limited. Obviously, it was only 7. I don't know what science to say about kids' memory at that age, but you know, it will be limited. Obviously, the standout, I suppose, happening at that time was his death, and unfortunately, that's a standout memory for me. But you know, you remember the little nuggets from time to time. I certainly remember at the time, again, football related, when we got our back garden concreted. It was in grass and it wasn't ideal for football. So I remember the back garden being concreted. That was probably around 83, probably only months before he died. But those are the memories, and you know, unfortunately, they would be very small. But as I say, we were left in very good hands, and we've had at this point a great life.
Yeah, and then obviously, is Amanda older or younger than you?
Amanda's older than me. I do remind her about that on a regular basis. Yeah, she's about 18 months older than me.
Yes, then two females leading your life, and obviously for you to lean upon and them to take you through life. What was the male influences within your life and in those early years?
Well, obviously, my mother. It was left to her then with superb aunts and uncles and backup and cousins and that. But at the end of the day, it was one woman doing two people's job. And look, myself and Amanda would like to think she'd done a fairly good job on it. And it was difficult on her. She had a business to run. She was a hard worker, worked hard in her youth, went to England, double and treble jobs, sent money home. And she took that back to our household. And obviously, you know, that's the drum that was bet in our house, you know, from we were very, very young. Just all those values, work ethic, that she displayed herself. And, she never asked us to do anything that she wasn't doing, never mind prepared to do, and she was doing that. So,
yeah, it's really a sign of leadership, isn't it? Somebody that'll lead by example.
I think so. I think she very, very much knew what she was about, and she knew that the same as any kids, that we would be hard reared. So she was putting everything in place from a very early stage. And to this day, both of us hold those morals and values in terms of being respectful and working hard and having that work ethic. And we're happy to hopefully get that across our own kids, and that's the challenge that lies in front of us now.
And then just moving on, Padraic, can you recall friends from that early stages of your life, around that?
Look at it in many ways. The friends that I had then, which is 35, 40 years ago, are very much, in a lot of cases, still my friends, and I still stay very, very close to some of them. Some of them older than me, some of them younger than me. Some other really close friends have come in from outside. That's life, whether it's going to St. Mel's or, whether through work or whatever, you have some very, very close friends. So I think I'm very, very lucky that way. I'm not somebody that's big in the numbers in terms of having an army of friends. What I have, I consider them close friends. And
just then, when did football really start playing a role in your life? Because I know when I started out, I'd have a couple of years on you, the same way as you have a bit on Amanda, but it was really 10 before football started in my life in a organised fashion. What age were you when football sort of started in that, like schoolboy or?
Yeah, certainly. Look, I would have hounded some of the local guys there to bring me from a very young age, and obviously my mother was against it. I was simply too young. But it's all we had. We were obsessed with football. We were on the street, we're stopping traffic. It's just the way that it was back then in the 80s. We were fit to set up goals in the middle of the street, either end, and hold the game up when the cars were coming through and go at it again. And that's the way it was. And I think a lot of people would get that hard to believe. And I remember talking to Damien Milady that owns or that's involved in the Milady group. recently, and we used to work there during the summer in the early 90s, and outside my lady's factory we used to set up the 2 sets of goals to play soccer at lunchtime, and we were actually fit to play a game and stop for the traffic coming through. But obviously that's all changed in that 25 or so years, and that's what we spent our youth doing, on the street playing football. I suppose like a lot of people, the first introduction to competitive football or getting serious about it, where you had your own boots and your clogs and your socks, and you didn't have a bag. It was a plastic bag from the local supermarket, and it was the parish leagues possibly. To answer that question, that was the first. Early coaches that you remember, people like Eddie Crow, Michael Joyce. Those families are still involved, in the club. It moved on then to Tom Crow, to Michael Milady, the late Michael Milady, who'll be the dad of the twins, who went on and won senior championships with them. And then all the lads that brought it, 10 and 12 piled into cars. And I think young lads nowadays wouldn't believe that would happen. And I'm only in my 40s, and that's exactly what happened. It was 3 across the front plus the driver, whatever you could squeeze into the back, and head off for Granard or Ballymahon or wherever it was. And it was great Gales at that time, Jerry Brady, Petey McQuaid, Johnny Cooney, they put in incredible work, and it was, they were organised. If one of them couldn't be there one day and it was hair or something on, to be replaced, somebody else would arrive with their car and away to go. So look at, there were great times. I think it's something that we have to very much respect all that they've done for us. And you would have seen, Damien, from young lad, particularly in the rural clubs, it wasn't unusual to see a tractor arriving for an underage game and 4 or 5 boys in a transport box. And that was very much something that would take place in Cashel, Tremard, Mullinyacht, or wherever it was. And I think the Slashers boys from the big town used to be very surprised at that. But that was life, and that's the way that it was. And that was it. It was all about playing football for me. I never really played in a good team. The team before me was very good. Brian O'Connor, McCrow, Paul McCormick, Jamie Brady, all that gang, Colin Hanafy, and a very good team. I was too young to make that one. And then when the next good team came, myself and Jimmy Tully, I think we're the only 2, or the rest of them were the only 2 that didn't make that. And Gary Brady and Cathal Riley and Martin and Michael Milady and that group. David Hanafy may have been in that group as well, and they had a good side. Got to a minor final. Ballymahon beat them. So all that underage was, while unsuccessful in terms of trophies for me, it was very much an enjoyable time, and it was just all about developing myself, and just really obsessed with the game at that age.
And you brought up earlier that you went to St. Mel's. Was that just an on-event? Did everybody in the Drumlish area go to Mel's? Was mine an option, or what was the decision there?
Everybody went to mine, the opposite to the question you just asked, I mean. Everybody, all my friends went to mine, and it was obvious why I went to Mel's. Again, the football was the sole reason why I went there. Mel's had won All-Ireland in 87, All-Ireland final appearance in 88, and 89 and 91 Leinster titles. So they had won an All-Ireland and 4 Leinster titles in a row, and I went in there in 1988 in the middle of all that. And at that time, these were the heroes, even though the Speedy McCormick and the Desi Barrys and Frank McNamee and all these lads were out there. That Mel's team of 87 were our heroes and through into 88. And that played a big part in why I would have picked Mel's. And I was lucky enough in 94, after a 2 or 3 year lapse, we actually won a Leinster title. Declan Rowley was our manager at that time. And, that's one of the sweet ones, I think, when you look back. And it was probably my first real taste of something special. And it was nice to have done that in 94. And
you were a day student, Padraic, or were you boarding?
I was a day student. Obviously, Mel's football at that time was really strong, and the Borders played a huge part in that. They came from the 4 provinces. And, but I was a day student. And
who were some?
I'm not sure what the numbers would have been at that time. Certainly, the Borders would have been more than 100 anyway, I would imagine.
And who were some of the names from outside of Longford that were on teams around your time there?
I suppose I think of my own crew. Martin Flanagan from Westmeath played in midfield, and obviously, and sadly, Conor Kennelly from Roscommon, who very tragically just went for a run, and an awful tragedy really for that family, for them to just drop dead there back around 4 weeks ago. I think they were the 2 star players, and Niall Sheridan obviously went on to become outstanding in the county footballer. Niall played a fullback in that team, and then in the forward line we had Mark Kenny from Rathline and Cathal Riley, and we had Brian Stickland from Slashers. And we had lots of John Smith from Edgerton, lots of very good players. Eamon Wall was there about Sean Farrell from Rathline. So a good bunch of lads, and I think we got what we deserved. That was a very, very good Nels team, but we probably met the best colleges side of all time in St. Jarlath's of Tuam. They were an exceptional team led by Padraic, Michael Donald, and Meehan, John Dibley. All that went on, and won 4 years later, won All Ireland senior medals and backed up in 2001. So I think we were unfortunate that they came so strong at that time. I think we had a real chance of winning something special. But just the one player I forgot there, and we look back on that forward line, like the one A-lister we had on that forward line was Aidan England from Slashers. He was an absolutely outstanding footballer, an outstanding forward. And, I think any of the other forwards would agree he was the Padraic choice or the Michael Donald. He was at that level at that time. And unbelievably, after that, he played little or no football. We had a reunion back there 6 years ago, and it was incredible. He said he didn't play 5 games of football after he walked out of St. Mel's. And that was unfortunate because he was one of the best colleges footballers I've seen.
And then, obviously, the reason you go to secondary school, Padraic, is to get an education. How did that go for you?
Oh, sure. Look at like everybody else. It was second to the football in many ways, but we got through it. Moved on to went that loan RTC, then came back in 1997. My mother died, a young woman, and myself and Amanda were almost there. I think I was 21 and she was 22 or 3. Came back to run the family business, and from there it led on to, I also had an interest in the property thing, what I do now, and went back to UCD during the week and at weekends, done real estate management and property valuations or something like that it was called at the time, and set up business in 2002, moved our office in the Longford in 2005, and we're at that since. So that was pretty much that era.
So that kind of takes us up into the early 90s. But I want to kind of jump forward on the club scene and the Gaels making the breakthrough in 96. Can you give me what led into that? Maybe the couple of years, or did you just come out of nowhere? You mentioned that the lads have been beaten in a minor final. What was the lead into that 96, 97, 98 team?
I think it was, obviously we won the Under-21 championship in 93 and 95. And I suppose many would say that they're not a great gauge in terms of winning senior championships, but I think yourselves won something like 4, maybe 5, including a B Under-21 championships, a remarkable record. And you can see what you got out of it. You went on and won 3 championships or whatever it was. So likewise, in 93, 95, the club, that was the first thing that I had won. I was one of the younger lads in the 93 team and one of the older lads on getting there in 95. And you would have to say that's what a lot of things fell into place for us. A lot of things. Francis McNamee returned from Dublin, Jimmy Harvey joining the backroom staff. David Hansley coming out of absolutely nowhere, went through Mel's, same as Liam Keenan, 2 guys that never played senior football in Mel's and went on to be outstanding midfielders. And he was huge influence on that team. But we just came at the right time. And we had great leaders: Colin Hannafy, James Preston, Paul McCormick, all that crew. And they were a brilliant bunch. And then it just happened. You get a run. That 96, it was extraordinary, really. We came out of nowhere, and I think Rathline probably in the semi-final was the only team that put it up to us. And they were a brilliant side, that Rathline team. I think Dennis Conrad may have been over them at the time, but they were a great team in 96, 97. We beat them in both semi-finals by a point. So that's how close we came. You look back and people will say that was a great Gaels team that you had, and you won 3 in a row, and you won it in style, and you won it at your ease, but nothing could be further from the truth. We won both those semi-finals by a point, and you went to 98 and we win a county final by 1 point against Abbey Lara. So we didn't win them at our ease by any stretch. We worked hard to do so.
And then you had a couple campaigns in Leinster and the point that never was. Are they things that you look back on as a regret?
Look, at that point, I was involved in myself. It was me that clicked the point. No, there's no regret in the point. There's a regret in that team didn't win a Leinster title. Certainly there. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and it's something that drives me on. Certainly is very much an ambition that I have to get back to that level. And I do think that team was good enough to win a Leinster title. We lost that semi-final that you talked about by 1 point, and Aero went on in the final and they won it at the Rees. I don't know how they got on after that, but that's a hard one to take. But look, we picked it up. Then Abilara had their turn in Jermara 99, Abilara 2000. Many would have felt that's the end of that Gales team. It's over. And we came back in 2001 and in a low scoring game against Granard. I think, yeah, it was against Granard. And won the fourth. And ended up playing in 3 other finals and obviously didn't cross the line in them. So great times, great experience. It's amazing too. A lot of the time you nearly remember as much about the games that you lost as the ones that you won. But they're great times. Like for Father Manigales to be in a county final in '96, it was like an extraordinary thing. I can't remember how long ago it was prior to that since we won. It was 40
years. Embraced it back then, Padraic, didn't they?
Which?
The supporters really embraced that team back then.
They did, yeah. Huge following. 1996 county final, 8,000 people at it. I think 7,800. Like crazy numbers compared to where you see the games going now. Not in Longford, but everywhere in terms of the numbers. But Forbes got behind this. We had great people, very much part of it. And they were great times. And obviously, you'd love to go back there for those times. But life moves on and we find ourselves where we are.
And Padraic, you've just moved into the county scene. When did you break onto a panel there? Who was the manager at the time?
The county senior?
Yeah.
1996, Eamon Coleman and Desi Dolan were over us at that time. I come through the underage setup. There was a word for me, but I was I was rated higher than I actually was, to be quite honest with you, and I had no problem at that time acknowledging it. I had never played Fallow Cup. I wasn't picked. I had 1 year of minor, and then I ended up having, I think, 3 years at under 21 and entered the senior team. So while it was slow at the beginning, it kind of took off. But I worked incredibly hard at it. I'm not going to say that it just happened. It didn't just happen. I worked as hard as I possibly could. It's what I wanted, and glad I got the chance to do that. But got in 96 then, I was over really with Eamon Coleman and the seniors, and Desi Dolan was over at that time. And that was good. Nice to be given your chance against Wicklow, first round of the championship at number 11, which was, I suppose, when you look at the end of my career, it was strange, but it was a position that I loved. But I think thereafter, everybody felt that it was better suited closer to the goal, and look at who you can't argue with any of them that was involved at that time.
Yeah, just going through some of the managers you work with. So there was obviously Eamon then, very driven man, had won All-Ireland. Was it Mick McCormick came after that?
Yeah, well, Eamon had won All-Ireland, as you say, in 93, and we got him 3 years later, which was great for us. Desi Dolan was with him, Great Westmeath man after that. We had Michael McCormick. Michael was based in Monaghan. I think he was with us for 4 years. Then Dennis Connerton took over. Matty Fox was with him, and another couple of local guys. So I've been very, very lucky who I worked under. Declan Rowley, then back in with Declan again, Luke Dempsey. So a lot of great lads there. I've been very, very lucky, including when I was taking in coaching. I think Mickey Harkins brought me in first on the 21s as a selector. Great lad, Mickey. Then Kieran Fox gave me a chance the year that the minors won the Leinster title. Brilliant time to be involved. I appreciate that so much, to be given that chance and to learn so much and be part of that environment. And then obviously, I suppose after that, I got the under 21 manager's job, and then it was 3 years with Glenn Ryan. And Glenn, apart from being a marvelous footballer, he's as you know, Damon, a real quality individual, and to do 3 years with him in that county senior setup, it gave me a great insight into the whole thing. So I've been very, very lucky. I think then when I left that, I took a year out, and then I went in with Mohill. I think I went in well prepared. Look, they're all brilliant football men, but I think they probably shaped me as a person was more important than what I learned of those people, football wise, you know, because I think about the game as you do or anybody else very, very deeply. So it's not that you're learning a vast amount of certain managers. I think they shaped me. I think they certainly did, as they did everybody else who was involved. You know, they're really, really good people. And I think we were very, very lucky to be involved with them. And that was that on the county scene. And then, obviously, I've been so lucky to have worked with what I've worked at club level with Pat Curry, an excellent manager, Jimmy Hannity, coach. Thomas Gill there at that time, just an excellent man for the club, and you know, his heart in it. Tommy McCormick took us over for a while. Tommy has probably won 7 or 8 senior football championships as a manager. So I suppose I've got my time with the best, and I've learned from the best, and you know, I can't really ask for much more.
And just something I'm interested in, Padraic, because there's a man that you're soldiering with at the minute that I soldiered with for a long time, and you know, was completely unheard of when he burst onto the scene, Paul Barden. I just want to get your take on what you thought when you seen Barden coming, or were you aware that this young fella was coming?
Enda told me first. I hadn't heard of the gossip that that's what he was at the time, and obviously ended being his brother. But Enda was very, very astute brain when it came to football, and he said to me on the QT one time, he said, "Pod, I'm not just telling you, but Paul, one of the books in our house," he said, "the Paul lad," he said, "he's something special." And that was the first time I had heard about him. And he's just went on. Jeez, the career he's had is unbelievable. For me, absolutely the best player that's ever played for Longford. And you might say, well, how can you make that judgment? You haven't seen the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I'm making that judgment on that skill levels, where they're at now, and where they've been for the last 10, 20 years compared to where they were 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Paul Barden is the greatest player, in my opinion, that's ever played for Longford. Certainly the best I've ever seen. And obviously Desi Barry was, you know, I think I wouldn't like to let it go without mentioning Desi Barry. Fantastic footballer, one of the best. I'd say you might get a nod GAA head somewhere, probably. Obviously in Longford Slashers would be very loyal to him, and beyond they would say, well, Desi is the best, and you know what, you couldn't argue with that. But just two outstanding footballers. The privilege for me to play with and against both of them. You know, Desi was a good lad. I had a lot of time for Desi when I was in the club football. I tried to get him in along with me, and it just didn't suit him at that time. But two mighty men. I can't say much more about them.
Yeah, like anyone that's following News Talking Off the Ball, they're doing a Mount Rushmore thing, the 4 standout sports people in every county. So those two lads would be very much to the fore in a Longford Mount Rushmore.
I don't think there's any question. And, you know, Paul at this stage in particular, because he's a younger man and the way social media and everything has gone, but he deserves to be where he is. He has worked incredibly hard. Yes, he was talented coming through, but and like there's no replacement for work. Like they're probably the 2 hardest workers I've ever seen in of all the teams I've ever played and ever been involved with. They're the 2 guys that has worked the hardest. And Paul, I haven't asked him, but I'd be absolutely certain he's ready to go again if the club championship goes this year, which is extraordinary. I guess he's maybe 39. I don't want to say he's 40.
This summer.
Is he 40 this summer?
Yeah,
I have no doubt he'll play.
We'll have a big party when this whole thing blows off. Padraic, there's just a question coming in there about culture, and my next question will probably lead into that. But just, you've talked a little bit about the morals you got from your mum and your sister, but what are the morals that you live by and that you hold value in? And then obviously that'll lead into the culture that you're trying to create around the team.
Look, they're very simple. They've come from home, and you know, any of the lads that's used to working with me, whether it's in Mull or Longford or whatever, you know, it's just being honest. You know, trust is a huge thing within a group. Accountability, just taking responsibility, all those things that we've heard for a lifetime. It doesn't change. You know, I think that's what's important to me, and certainly at inter-county senior level, I think that in 99% of cases, you're dealing with the converted, you know, and I think I'm incredibly lucky to have that group that I had there for the last 18 months. Unfortunately, it was cut short, but great bunch, and anything that I would want in them is there already. So it's only a matter of trying to polish that, and a lot of them is just about being the best they can be. And we're not asking for much more. I think it's in our nature to take shortcuts. I think that's the way we're made. So I think we have to whip ourselves into line on a regular basis. And I think a lot of them lads, mad to learn, and the honour is certainly mine to be involved with them.
And then again, just touching on this culture thing, but your football and philosophy, what is that? What are your beliefs? What way do you want your team to play? And is it based on the players you have, or are you very stoical about your philosophy and that you will find players to fit into that?
I know. Look, I think you very much have to see what you have, Damien. Implement whatever game that you can. Philosophy, what's that? It's very, very simple instructions. None of them are put in a straight jacket. In possession, we're all attackers. Out of possession, we're all defenders. Look, at very, very simple stuff. We're not asking too much from them. We're just asking whatever we do, we keep it simple. We won't complicate it. But when you take to the field, we would appreciate as a management that you will go on trying to implement that as a game plan as best you can. And I think that's it. And we can complicate the thing and we can overcoach it. But I'm very, very much for keeping the thing simple. And I think sometimes we all lose sight of that and we go away and we become more important than what you're actually dealing with. And I try to keep it as relevant as possible. And the group that we have there at the moment are responding to that. And there's a togetherness there, and it's something I think it's enjoyable there, very much so. And as I say, a good bunch. I'm lucky.
Yeah, so we have another question in there from David Higgins, and it links to one of my next ones. It's the 3 or 4 most important things that you do as regards to engaging with your players.
I think it's engaging with the group. We're talking about 50 plus people. Obviously we say that includes some members of the county board from time to time, and it's, I suppose, the most important thing for me is creating an environment where everybody feels valued, because with that many people, we only have them for maybe 6 hours a week. And with that many people, there are nights that certain members of the backroom staff and that will go to training and they will have no involvement at all. And it's trying to just create that environment, as I say, that everybody feels valued. And I think that's the word that is applied to it. And I think I do the best I possibly can to do that. And by times it's not simple. Some nights I go to training session myself and I'm doing an awful lot of which I don't find very enjoyable. And when I get out onto the field, it has started and it's gung-ho. The boys are going through it, the warm-up done. John Donnellan is driving them. And, it takes me a while to get into that. So it's I think we all at times can feel a bit like that. But it's I don't know, look at it. It's just establishing clearly defined roles for everybody. I think that's very, very important. And none of us, including myself, stepped out of that remit. We all must do what our jobs are, and not stand in each other's corners, for want of a better way of putting it. And that's, as you said, creating a culture of behaviour. And sometimes, it's like how would you like to be perceived from the outside as a group? And you're working away at that all the time. And I think that the lads in particular conduct themselves very, very well in public, in interviews, at training, in games, and I think they're doing a good job.
And just, Padraic, I'm looking for a tangible example, and I'm going to use Gordon and Danny as the 2 kit men. It's always something when I was involved with a team that there was a kit person there, and they had the most thankless job of everyone was there. And I always had feelings of trying to help them out as best I can, because they had the dirty job. They were the first ones there, had to put out all the kit and all the gear, and they were the last ones leaving looking for footballs, because they were going to get their balls broken if they didn't find all the footballs back. And personally, I used to make an effort to try and help them out with that. But give me a tangible example of how you can make those two guys feel valued on a week-to-week or a month-to-month basis.
I just think, look at, again, the basics, just basic respect, basically the way you treat them from day to day. Like they're two unbelievable men, and who I had prior with me, and obviously he was involved at the time, was David Hanley, which you would know. Like, and these boys are as important as any member of management, any member of the team. Like, they're just fantastic. They're an hour ahead of us at all times. We ride into a dressing room in Loud or wherever it is, below Carlow, whatever. The place, the music is on, the jerseys are all in hangers. You've seen it, Damien. It really, hasn't changed a whole lot from the last time you played at Longford. And the level of respect those lads command, and I have to say the players in particular, the respect they show towards them is brilliant, very, very encouraging. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think you could. I think it's just the basic things. And I think the players in particular, it's them, they expect it from me, from Paul, from Donald, from John, whoever else is involved there. They expect it from us. But when it comes from the players, because young lads are different, they have more important things in their lives than concentrating on making everybody feel important. And that's completely understandable. But no, I think they do a brilliant job in that.
And just again, Padraic, touching on your backroom team, and I flagged this question with you earlier in the week, but if we break them down into three sections, so you have your players, you have your management and selectors, and then you have your ancillary team. So you said there earlier that potentially at any point in time there could be 50 people involved in that whole setup. But can you break down percentage-wise? So that whole 50 people contribute to 100%. So how much of that 100% is a portion to the playing group? How much is a portion to yourself and your selectors? And then how much is a portion to the ancillary backroom team?
It's a very hard question in terms of percentages. I'm struggling once you ask me to break it down in terms of that. What I will say is the most important people, without a shadow of a doubt, are the players, and we can never lose sight of that. Players. Back many days ago, someone like DJ Carey or somebody said when he was fighting the corner for the GPA, the only VIPs in the GPA are the players, and I'm all for that, because without them we have absolutely nothing. And I think particularly at this level, they all respect that. Very humble. There's no, they don't go around with any airs and graces about them. So none of us can lose sight of that. I think in victory, management probably get too much praise. There's too much about the manager, if I'm honest, something we've taken from the Premiership. When the team wins, it's the manager. When the team loses, it's the manager. But also in defeat, I think we take a crazy level of criticism, and that's not right either. But I think they're all hugely important aspects. S&C, nutrition, physio, Dr. Paddy Breslin, like everybody, Gordon, Danny, our S&T coaches, Alan and James and Ian Higgins, that helps us with stats, and like it's just, there is so many people there, that are so important. So to break it down into percentages, I just would find it difficult to do, because at times, it certainly varies.
And Padraic, just again on say match day, can you give me, excuse me, just the hours leading up to a match, whether it's an away game or a home game, the 4-6 hours from you get up in the morning till you're ready to walk out on the field? What does that look like?
I certainly found it much harder as a player than I do now. And obviously that's an age thing too. I think obviously I'm a little bit more relaxed, but it's tough on the players the day of the game. For instance, changed from our time, whether it's at home or we're away. We eat in the hotel 3 hours before throw-in. So we take a home game, for instance, we play at 2 o'clock in the National League. At 11 o'clock we eat, because that's what the science says now. That's what Kate McDaid, the nutritionist, says. Everybody buys into that. We go with that. We eat it at 11 o'clock. And then we're trying to pass time, taking us up to about 12. And then we'll more than likely go to another room and we'll have a meeting. And generally, meetings are very to the point, and they don't drag on. Generally, I'm the only one that speaks, unless I ask Tony McGilligan, the captain, or Mickey Quinn, vice captain, to say something. that's it. I speak, and it's bang out the door, and we're gone for Pierce Park again. Danny and Gordon are an hour ahead of us. We walk in to his dressing room, and you know, when you look at the dressing rooms that we walked into in our early days, it's hard to envisage that it was ever any other way, but it certainly is. It's a completely different story. Music is on, boys get down their foam rolling, they're stretching. More than likely, I'll speak just for a few minutes, go through a few things that we had talked about during the week, linking in with the last game, where we can improve in particular. And then it's out, warm up, along with James Murray, Alan Malone. Then John Donlan takes them for ball skills, but it'll be, you know, very, very much at game intensity and game pace. And it's back in, and we generally at that time that we're ready, that I'm ready to say a few words, possibly around 10 to something like that. And thereabouts around the field for 5 minutes before throw in. And I always, as a player, I wanted that 5 minutes to myself. And I think as a manager, I try as often as I possibly can to see everything through the eyes of the player. I think that's the most important thing from my point of view, because it's difficult. It's and the county scene is a harsh environment, and I'm glad I have the experience as a player. I sat in front of so many managers, and you know, I remember little or no drills, any of them done, but I remember what they said to me. You know, and I remember when they made me feel 10 feet tall, and I remember when they cut the legs from under me when performance levels weren't where they should be. And I agree with both scenarios. So I try to do that as best I can, and they get that time, 5 minutes, and then it's throw in, and that's it. It's you're helpless in many ways until half time, and you hope you can have some little impact or input at that time, and that's it then. But it's game day, is players' day.
And during that first half, Padraic, how are you maintaining notes, or you know, who's feeding information into you? You know, how does that half play itself out?
We're mic'd up. Ian is mic'd there. John is mic'd. Donald Leonard is mic'd. But I'm very much, unless it's something that really need to get across to me that I haven't seen, I'm tipping away there old school with my own little, it's like the back of a matchbox, and I'm happy doing that. And just I kind of, what I'm trying to do is build 3 or 4, 5, no more valid points for half time to speak on. And then when the final whistle goes, it's up the tunnel into our own dressing, management will go into a dressing. We'll wait for Ian Higgins to come in with the stats of the first half. We'll have a discussion on it for 5, 6, 7 minutes. Players are inside. They'll have a lot of it covered themselves. You know, and at that stage, no doubt, Donald McGelly would have spoke, Mickey Quinn would have spoke. And they're great leaders, and they're guys that can self-analyse and self-coach, and not afraid to call themselves out. You know, Donald will speak up there and he say, lads, our handling isn't good enough, and I'm the biggest culprit. I've had poor hands 3 or 4 times in that half. Mickey Quinn will tell them not be kicking the ball away, and he'll put up his hand and say, I'm the biggest culprit, I've kicked it away 4 or 5 times. So when you have that leadership, you know, life becomes that little bit easier. And it's generally tactical. The difference in the dressing room now as opposed to club football, I felt in the club scene that every training session, prior to every game, every half time was a rant about work and work and work harder, and you know, getting up and down that pitch box to box. It seemed to be, but when you get the inter-county senior footballer, that's a given. It's par for the course. And I think maybe in the last 2 years I pulled hard on the lads, maybe twice or something like that, and it almost never comes up.
Yeah, and I just smiled there when you mentioned about Mickey kicking the ball away, and you know, I just was going to comment on, isn't that real leadership that, you know, he doesn't revert to type or revert to just hand passing the ball. He will continue to do it because he'll back himself, and he knows it's where the high win is. And look at, if things go really bad for him in a game, he'll work hard on it for the rest of the week. The same way as your mother showed leadership in picking up everything and pulling the whole family together.
Yeah, and look, sometimes players can beat themselves up about it, but look at it. Part of the game is mistakes, and I accept that, and I don't have a problem with it. And if someone like Mickey has has 30 and 35 possessions someday, he's going to give the ball away. There's no point in thinking he's not going to give the ball away. But, you know, if a guy is down with 7 or 8 possessions, it's very important with what he does with that ball. And I think the way the game is evolved, the way the game has changed, I think it's very much along the lines of possession is 9/10 of the law. You know, it's everything, and particularly at the inter-county level. It doesn't make the game as a spectacle any better, but it's just the way that it is. You know, it's attack, get the ball dead, and defend. So when you have that attack, you must get the ball dead, and you're trying to minimise your turnovers and have the ball going the other way, and you have men out of place and that, and not a structure in place. So look, it's a learning curve, and I think we're all learning as we go along.
Yeah, just 2 points there. I'll bring in Enda's question there. It's basically about the leadership group within. Is there a leadership group within your setup? So have you them broke down into little subgroups, or how do you develop leadership within your team?
Leadership is the leadership groups are basically taken on by definitely Donald McGillick, Mickey Quinn, Don may ask Darren Gallagher to take up something, Paddy Cullum to take up something. So it's very much left to the players. You know, it's not something that I structure for them. I think they do that themselves. They, you know, and they will always say, you know, we want to do this, and they run it past me, and there's never an issue, and you know, they do a good job on that. But no, I'm very much open to that. And as I say, I don't restrict them. You know, within reason, it's not an open book for everybody to just go off and do their own thing. But no, there's no problem that way.
And you referenced as well about the possession game, and something that I find as well, that about whether the spectator actually understands the game that you guys are involved in. So can you just maybe throw a little light on that?
Actually, look, I suppose it's difficult for spectators, I suppose, to understand what goes on in the group and goes on in that bubble. Effectively, it's hard for them to understand it from that point of view, and I suppose to could reflect at times the fire less criticism the players way in that, but also in terms of the way the game was played and the way it's gone, it has evolved, and it's just gone from, you know, if we go back far enough, it was like tennis, it was just kick to each other. But I think most people, it's very unusual to hear a man in the stand, maybe with his couple of sons or whatever, shouting in, "Will you just kick it in?" It's nearly a thing of the past, where if we go back 5-6 years ago, that was still there. So I think everybody has just, I suppose, moved with it and accept that the game is never going to be what it was. But it's not fair to say that either. I think it's beginning to evolve back towards that. I think the third and fourth quarters in most games are they watch on television or there's a local club game, whatever, they're very entertaining. And you know, I think it opens up when teams are not as structured defensively. And again, I think that's where everybody has the problem with it. But no, I think supporters have come around to it. You know, it's a matter of having to. And I suppose you have it in all sports, rugby, soccer, and everything else. But I think they have come around to it.
We'll just move away from football for a minute, Padraic, and we'll come back to it again. But I just want to know, what's been your proudest moment as a husband or a father?
Actually, look, the birth of me 4 kids without any question. You know, and so lucky for that to have happened. Something that's hugely important to me. You know, going back to where we started at the beginning, and coming from a small family, it was very, very important to me that I had a family, certainly larger than the one that I came from, and I have that, thank God, and we're all healthy and happy, and you know, I can't ask for much more than that, and it's a great position to be in. But it was hugely important to me from a very young age. It's something that I always wanted, and thank God I have it now. And as I say, fingers crossed, so far so good.
And obviously, you're away from the house a lot with football. You're on the phone a lot, probably when you're at home. Obviously, with the auctioneering business, you're probably meeting people outside of hours. How do you find time to give back to your family?
I think any time that is there, you know, it's given to the family. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We literally do nothing without them. The girls come to all the training sessions. They come to all the games on the bus. I think that's very important to me. I remember Donald later asking me, would it be okay if these two little lads came on the bus? Absolutely. I want that. And there's a lot of intercounty setups who wouldn't have that. It's very important to me. I've seen it, you've seen it in Glenn Ryan's time. And Ronald Sears were very young at that time, but Glenn really wanted his kids and our kids to be part of that. And I was never going to let that go out of the dressing room. There's lots who disagree with that. Now, when I say that they're not in the dressing room, but they're on the bus going to the game and come into the hotel and they sit one side and, you know, to keep quiet, they're well instructed and well warned prior, and there's no doubt about that. But I think things are, and look, if it gets out of control and 10 of the players end up having 2 or 3 kids, we'll cross that hurdle when we have to. But for now, that's not the case.
And what do the kids like doing with you? How do they like spending time with Dad?
Actually, look, it's very much based around what myself and Emma do. You know, it's very much, they're very much part of everything we do. Whether it's football, they go to basketball with Emma. You know, at the weekend, if I don't have a Longford game and we go for something to eat, me and Emma don't go. The kids come with us as well, and that's hugely important. You know, and whatever bit of socialising we do, if we tip up to the local on a Sunday, if Longford again rather than playing, there's a big game and the Premier League. The 2 girls are brought with us. Myself and Brandon go up and they come with us, and that's important. It's very, very important because I'm fast approaching where they'll be saying I'm not going, Dad. You know, so and then it's gone. It's gone, and there's no getting that back. So very much, anytime, any breaks we take or anything else, it's 100% the kids involved, and I wouldn't have it any other way because of you know, the amount of time between work and the county football, and the amount of physical time it takes with kids and get them to school, get them out of school, get them to creches. You know, it's physically demanding. Plus the fact, like you can well imagine, between the job that I work at and the football job that I'm in, the phones to my ear way more often than you'd like. But there's little or nothing I can do about that. So you know, the time that we do have with them is very much valued, and we find it.
And just taking looking at Emma and yourself, what would an ideal date for the 2 of you be?
Our house is so busy, Damien, without sounding contrived. Absolutely, tip to some of the local restaurants with the family, and Emma's mum and dad. That's what we do. You know, we've had lots of time for dates, the 2 of us together, and we'll have lots of time going forward with the help of God. But no, very much, you know, there's only the windows of opportunity. That's what we have, and we're going to make the most of it with the kids. And you know, it won't be long till they'll all fly the nest, and we'll have any amount of time for dates then.
Good lad. I'm sure she's delighted to hear it.
Oh, she's well used to it, you know. It's not easy. Look, at Emma is still mad about sports, still mad about football, and if she wasn't, it's not. For me, it wouldn't be doable. It just simply wouldn't be doable.
And Padraic, just again, I started this personal section about talking about your morals, and this is the last question I'm having on the personal section. But what would you not put your name to? What would you not promote? What are you not in favour of in life?
Sure, I don't think I'll ever have the problem of not having to put my name to something. But look, for someone that's involved in sport and is very much high profile, and that, and if you found yourself in that situation, I don't gamble and I don't smoke, but certainly I wouldn't back either. You know, I wouldn't put my name to either of those brands. Obviously, I don't think anybody would do it to smoking anyway, but you certainly would see it in gambling. And there are 2 things: I don't gamble, I don't smoke, I drink. Would I put my name to marketing drinks company? Probably not. No, I think I would avoid it.
Thanks, Padraic. Why are you a Gaelic football manager?
I've been asked this question quite a bit, and I don't have to hesitate for a second. I've got involved in mentoring teams, whether it be selected or a coach or a manager, because I miss playing. There's no other reason I got involved in the first place. It very much was a replacement for playing. You you know, it's a good replacement, but it doesn't come anywhere close to it. And I think that's where a lot of players nearing the end of their careers, if they lose sight of how important it is to play for as long as you can, they're going to be so disappointed. Like, I played for as long as I possibly could, and I still miss it. I really miss it. And go back to Paul and why he's going to have a go more than likely at a senior championship again at the age of 40 years of age. You know, his attitude is he's only living once, he's going to play it. And not everybody does that, and I understand that. But I have no regrets. I don't look back. So if you were to ask me, playing the game was 10 out of 10 every single day, and managing and being a coach, even with success, never surpasses 8 when compared to my playing days.
Padraic, how would your players describe you?
Oh, jeez.
There's a couple of them on here online now. If you want to go through the list there, Doc and Paddy Cullum are there.
Very good, very good. 2 good lads. I'd say that I'm fair and I'm honest, and that I'm approachable. I think they all feel. I think they do. They all feel fairly comfortable in my company. I think that's important. You know, obviously it's easier for the older lads than the new lads coming in on the panel, and that's just an age thing. But no, look, I get on. I'm not best friends with any of them. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that I'd say they see me as being honest and fair, and that I am approachable, and possibly that I should know some little thing about the game. But look, so far so good. There's been no problem. Look, most of them will probably describe me completely different, but I would hope it'd be along those lines.
What goes into picking a backroom team, Padraic?
Sure, the backroom team is you know, sure, it's you. It's everything, and I've been incredibly incredibly lucky in the backroom teams that I've picked. You know, whether it was with the under 21s, that was possibly my first job at that time, back in 2011, and you know, like Eugene McCormick, Pete McQuaid, Cathal Connerty. So lucky to have those lads. On to Mull, Trevor Small, Pete McQuaid again, Ian Higgins again, James Murray again, and then you go into Longford and you see what I have now in the likes of Donald and Paul, and obviously John Donlan. He's, you know, an All-Ireland medal winner, brilliant at what he does. So I'm very lucky to have those guys, and I think I've chose well over the years. I think that's one thing that I definitely have got right. From my point of view, I don't think that's up for question. I look back at the lads that I've chose, you know, and all the other lads we have mentioned prior to this. You know, great lads. Been very lucky to have worked with them.
Yeah, and it's a true sign of your own leadership that these people are prepared to go back in with you again in a different setting. So, you know, credit where it's due there as well. How are you still learning, Padraic? How are you upskilling yourself? Where are you getting your information from?
Look at it. It's not that I read a lot about it. I would say by talking to people, and I'm prepared to learn from absolutely everybody. Some of the youngest players coming in on the Longford panel at the moment, I want to hear what they have to say. You know, I don't just take it for granted that they should be learning from me. Why should I not learn from them? And I think whether it's supporters, former players, whatever, I think that's through talking the game and talking endless for hours and hours with friends, with supporters. You know, I have friends that are not involved in football and they've got unbelievable brains for the game. So why not listen to them? So it's very much people-based. I don't think I'm an internet manager or coach. I'm not somebody to be Googling. I'm not into that stuff. I don't think I ever will be. Yes, if I need to get something, some material that's there, you know, at the click of a mouse or something, I will do so. But I would rather lift the phone to people whose opinion I value. And I think developing conversation, picking up on all the little things that they say, for me, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that that's the way to do it, that you should not, you know, as get the source of information somewhere else. It's the way that I do it, and I'm learning from the players every single day. I'm learning from the backroom staff, I'm learning from former players, friends, and it's going to continue that way for me. And even in other codes, other sports, brilliant, sporting icons throughout all our lives, and we're taking little bits and pieces from them as well. And that's for me. That's I'm happy with that. I'm very much open that if somebody flicks on something to me, WhatsApp or whatever, and it takes a half an hour to read, will I read it? Of course I'll read it. There's no doubt about it. But it's kind of, to answer your question, don't go searching that type of stuff. I don't. If it's flicked me away by somebody that I trust, and it goes back to that word again, straight away I'll delve into it when I get the time and see if there's anything I can take out of it. And very much along the lines of, you can learn as much, if not more, of the people that's perceived to know less than you can of anybody else, so-called experts. And I'm definitely along that line. I don't discount or dismiss anybody's opinion. Some of them by times are bizarre, but I listen, and if there's anything to be taken out of them, I will. That's the route I take.
So, Padraic, just a couple news items that have been in the GAA circles the last couple of weeks, but the failed drugs test down in Carlow. What's your take on that? And more so, without the case itself individually, but you as a manager of a team that have players getting randomly tested and after games, and lads having to wait for hours to provide a sample, and always potentially an uncertainty that somebody could come back with a failed test.
Yeah, look at where do I stand on this? The guy broke the rules, and it's. I think it's an unfortunate scenario. I don't know where I am on performance enhancing drugs, to be honest with you. Absolutely in professional sport, they have no place. I think because of the limited education that we have at amateur level, I think there's always a possibility that somebody is going to make a major mistake. And I think that chap is unfortunate. I really do. We around the same time, we had 3 of our lads tested in our second last training session in Abbottstown, I'm almost certain. And funny enough, when I heard that a player had been caught, would you believe it? I actually never thought of our own 3. I just took it for granted. No, there's no chance our play. It didn't even cross my mind. But I just think I don't know where I stand on amateurs being tested. I'm not so sure it's the right thing to do. I'm not so sure why it's in. Is it because of GPA grants or why it's there? Haven't thought enough about it. I think it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances. The chap has broke the rules, so I don't want to send out the wrong message, but there's a wider discussion here, and it's not around someone deliberately taking a performance enhancing drug. There's a little bit of leeway with me because genuine mistakes are made.
Padraic, do you think our players more likely to get caught for performance enhancing, as you say, or recreational?
Well, that's another debate. I think in the inter-county scenes, performance enhancing more likely. I think social drugs are definitely more relevant, sadly, in the club scene. It's something that, it's something that's going to have to be tackled into the future. It doesn't sit with me at all. It's something society has to face. I think a lot of us are very, very lucky that we're so involved in sport. Sport goes a long, long way to helping raise our families, and we would hope that we can avoid that whole scene. But it's there. It's in young people's faces. As I say, sadly, it's for me, it's the elephant in the room, and it's going to be very, very hard to rein it back now. So it's to answer your question, more likely performance enhancing in the inter-county scene, and absolutely more likely to be social drugs in the club scene.
Just to give you a moment to catch your breath, Padraic, and just to inform our listeners, like, we're just over an hour in, not that much more, but there's lots of comments coming in there that people are enjoying what we're doing. So not that much more. Delighted if everybody would like to continue on with us, but obviously if people are dropping out for whatever reasons, no problem at all. A final question, or two questions, sorry, left in this section. Where do you think the game of Gaelic football will end up in the next 3 to 5 years? What changes do you see coming?
I suppose the biggest issue facing the GAA, particularly at the inter-county level, I think the biggest is the costings of running inter-county camps, and it's the court is going on me all the time. And believe it or believe it not, and it's something I had hoped wouldn't go there. The club scene is following equally as fast, and it's just not sustainable, particularly at club level. Is it sustainable for the top 5 or 6 teams, or maybe even less, 4 teams that are going to be thereabouts all the time? Yes, because you have the whole area of sponsorship and corporate and whatnot. But I think overall, I think the game has, the GAA will have a big issue to contend with in terms of the finances, and it's tough, particularly on clubs. Particularly on clubs where players are going back, particularly looking from third level, even colleges football now, they're coming out of inter-county squads, and the standards are so high, and it's we'll do this and we'll do this, and we'll get a gym and we'll get a nutritionist, even if it's only part-time, and every little thing keeps chipping away, and it's very, very difficult. And it's not. I don't think it's out of control, but it's just not sustainable. There will have to be a correction in that market somewhere.
And Brian Duggan had a question there about the 2-tier championship. What's your takes?
I suppose to answer Brian's question, it's gone, and there's absolutely no chance of that happening now. So we're back into next year, Brian. I suppose its introduction was a fan of it. I certainly wasn't against it. And I think Longford are, if you look at Longford's form from 2008 to the present day, 12 years, 13 years or thereabouts, we're probably a team that could go very close to achieving something in that. And I think if it was given a fair standing in terms of how the media look after it and the GAA do their best to market it, at the time of year that it's played, and give it the respect that it deserves. I think it deserves a chance. I'm not saying it's the way to go. I've possibly seen better models, but I think the qualifiers were outdated, and I certainly would have given it a chance. But unfortunately, like a lot now, it's definitely gone. There's no chance of that being played this year.
Yeah, and I suppose just on my own thoughts on it, like a B championship or a second tier or whatever you want to call it, there has to be more than 2 games guaranteed for a team. Getting beaten in Leinster prior to a Leinster final or whatever, and still been only guaranteed 1 game in a tier 2 is, to me, is not really an improvement on the situation.
I know, look, it's all about playing the game, and like you see some player, one came out last week, I can't even remember who it was, and said they'd like to see the inter-county game going back to knockout. The effort that goes into club football now, like when did I ever play? I did, yeah, but certainly the first half of my club career was knockout. First round you were gone, and that was it over. So you train from January to June, and if you weren't part of a good team, that was it, you were gone. Which when I started out, I lost, I'd say 4 or 5 years in a row, first round of the championship, and you were gone. So it's all about playing the game. That type of scenario doesn't stand. But I'm definitely with you on that one, Damien. I think it's the players. Most games you can at the right time of year, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Just in short, Padraic, a question there from Sean. What Longford player do you think at the minute could turn into a good manager or a coach?
I think they all. Everybody has an ability to coach the game. I suppose you're likely to look to your leaders. Again, we're back to someone like Donald McGilligan, definitely, Mickey Quinn, the likes of Paddy Cullen. Has huge interest in the game. I think he could kick on, but there's loads of lads there that could look at. Quietest man on the team could end up being the best coach, the best manager. I suppose the question that's been asked there is, when he retires, who's the first group they're going to be going for? And it's going to be that group that we're seeing or perceived as being the leaders of the team. And that's the most natural thing. But then suddenly we'll find out when this batch goes into coaching and management that if it's the wrong people altogether that you thought would succeed. So they all have the potential to get there. There's no doubt about it. And some of them lads will go on, but I wouldn't like to see any of them going near it. I hope to play for their clubs and for their county for as long as possible.
So, Padraic, just to wrap up the last few minutes, fairly short answers. The first one might be your longest one, but after that, fairly short answers. What's the funniest thing that ever happened on a Longford trip as a player or a manager or a selector that you can tell us about?
Oh, sure, look at trips away. We were everywhere. We were so lucky. 4 years we won championships with how many games? We went on foreign holidays. In 2000 we went to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Cyprus, Spain, Portugal. I went to New York so many times to play football for weekends, fly on a Saturday, back on a Monday.
The good old days.
It was just they were just brilliant times, all those trips. I could pick out 1,000, but all those trips. Away London, brilliant place to go. In the very early days prior to your time, we'd fly, we'd play the game, and some of us would stay on in London for the extra day. Great times, great memories. On the Saturday, you'd take in a Premiership game if you could at all. I remember Michael McCormick, manager, and we'd done our best to take in a Premier League match, but it didn't work out. It was a team meeting put in place or whatever. But no, great times.
Padraic, a past Longford player that you would love to have on your panel at the minute?
I suppose the lads that I've mentioned. So possibly David Hannafy, Trevor Smullen, and Niall are the three players that had the biggest impact on my intercounty career. Definitely those three. Hannafy's foot passing, unbelievable talent. Trevor Smullen would be constantly probing, trying to get me on the ball, and then I had a brilliant understanding with Niall. So those three, I think, they definitely deserve a special mention. You take that type of player in your team all day long. And then Francis McNamee, I have to say, in terms of the greatest captain, you talk about people that influenced you and people that shaped you as a person. I think McNamee was very much, he captained that 3 in a row team, and he got every last ounce out of himself. He's another player that it was all based on. He was just a workaholic. That's what he was. He got every last ounce out of himself. He drove from Waterford to play for Longford. He drove from Dublin. He's an extraordinary captain. I think them lads deserve a mention.
Your favourite other sport, Padraic?
Golf.
And well, then I was going to ask if it was a team. I know who you support in soccer, but who's your favourite golfer?
Tiger.
Very good. Anybody you admire in public life?
I have a big interest in horses. Not all sort of horsing, show jumping, hunting. But from a racing point of view, I think Aidan O'Brien, not just because of what he has achieved, I think it's the pressure that he's under. He's by far the best stable in the world in produce coming out of Coolmore, and he has to run Ballydoyle with some of the wealthiest men in Europe owning those horses, and the pressure he'd be under. And he's an extraordinary man. I think he's done brilliantly, and in a sport where, like Premier League football, where managers and horse trainers are just moved on one after the other, he's standing the test of time. Yes, he has the best progeny, but he's somebody that I admire.
2 kids coming up behind him as well.
Yeah, 2 great ones.
Challenges we face as a society, not I haven't mentioned the current situation at the minute, but just society in general. What are some of the challenges we're facing that you identify?
I should look at it, whatever I hear in the news, and the ones that just keeps ringing and ringing and ringing, possibly the health service, the homeless issue, and there are many, but I'm certainly not politically minded. Appreciate the job that those people have to do. not at times like these, at any time. Like I talk about sports players and managers being criticised, but they have a big job all the time, and take a lot of criticism. So there's many things, but I think homelessness and health are the two areas.
What gets your goat up, Padraic? What really annoys you?
I suppose whether it's, I have friends and family that do so well for themselves and business and everything else. Like, and I don't resent that. I'm very much behind them and pushing them on, want them to do better. And people that are resentful and instead of just saying well done, you've done well for yourself, whether it's in college or business or whatever. The people, don't resent them. That's what I'd say. Definitely not. Say well done. It's like looking at the neighbour and seeing that he's doing well for himself, and he should drive you and say, "I'm gonna try and be up there," rather than begrudging him. Like, I don't think that fits for me. So stuff like that. Again, a difficult question.
Some instant reactions, Padraic. So just one or two words when you hear this. Conor McGregor.
Not for me.
Mary Lou.
Has done well for herself.
Michael O'Leary.
Best public speaker I had heard live.
Joe Brawley.
Highly intelligent, highly controversial.
Donald Trump.
Irresponsible.
Roy Keane.
Probably the sports person that had the greatest influence on me.
Bono.
Great singer, great band. Still haven't figured them out.
Maura Higgins.
Found a way, and well done.
And then Love Island.
Awful stuff.
Bit of a fan myself, though. Again, just wrapping up here now. One or the other. So Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Keane or Vieira?
King.
That hurts you.
King.
O'Gara or Sexton?
O'Gara.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Chicken burger or beef burger?
Beef.
Drafts or chess?
Chess.
25 or poker?
Poker.
Darts or pool?
Pool.
Wenger or Henry?
Henry.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Padraic Davis. Padraic, thanks so much. Awful generous with your time. I really settled into that. I hope people appreciate the work that you do for Longford in particular, but we have a lot of people from outside Longford listening in here. Hopefully they got an insight into an inter-county setup, but also a person that's involved in that and putting themselves out there and getting the criticism, as you say, and getting some of the glory, but lots of criticism as well. So thanks very much, Padraic, and thanks everyone else for joining in with us. I'll just flick up, I'll share my screen again here, and I'll flick up the rest of our webinar series. So next Wednesday night, we have Gary Seiss on board with us, and then Wednesday week we have Brendan Maher, and then Paddy Collum got a couple mentions there. Paddy Collum is joining us with Enda Lyons and Craig Lynch for a goalkeeping webinar on the 27th of May. So hopefully people can join us on that. Again, finally, Padraic, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And everybody, thanks for joining in. Hopefully we'll see you again next Monday or next Wednesday night. Thanks very much and bye.